And bam, we are live with today's episode of Mentor Minutes, where I take real world practical struggles and questions from leaders around the world, try to apply some principles and theory behind leadership, and get some actions behind those. So if you're tuning into this in my podcast or on YouTube, you can drop into the comment sections. I'll get it on tomorrow's episode. But for those of you that are joining here live on Facebook, go ahead, drop any questions you have on leadership, management, any struggles you're dealing with, and especially specific situations. That's where it gets real for everybody. So drop those down in the comment section, and I'll start tackling those as we go along here. First question I actually have two questions that I want to get to, and they kind of play off one another. And the first one is a difficult one. So this is something I got a direct message through Facebook, so I'll keep them anonymous. But they left, Peter, so good to see you here. They left a position back in April of this year because of really cultural differences. There was a big change in senior leadership, and they weren't following the principles and the culture that had been established before. And so this individual left the organization, and what's happened is they've had issues with answering the question in interviews, what have you been doing since April, and why are you leaving? Now, this individual has a great reference, a good relationship with their former senior manager, so that's something to leverage. But in these cases, I prefer to tackle it head on, and I prefer to be as transparent and honest as possible. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. Dancing around the issue, they will see right through that. By confronting it head on, you are showing that you're being honest in so many other areas. And 3, it leads into the questions you should be asking them surrounding the culture. So in this case, this individual left their job because of cultural differences and culture, for lack of a better term, for cultural reasons. What you would do in this case is you would explain that you left the organization in April because of these instances, and you can label just a few. You don't want to really pile on or anything like that. And it had changed, and it turned out it just wasn't a fit for me. I wasn't fulfilled in that role. And as opposed to, and this is a key part of this, as opposed to just retiring on the job while I looked for another job, I felt it best for me to just leave the organization and move on from there. Now, what you want to reference, and what I hope you have, you reference, you're welcome to talk to my general manager. I have him down on my references. He'll give me a very positive reference. And I hope that you have tenure with the company. And what I mean by that is that you have longevity that you can get at. Because what the issue with people being fired or leaving jobs constantly is that the person is never going to be satisfied with a job. When I look at a resume and I see somebody who's been job hopping every 6 or 9 months, that's my big concern, is that they get bored with a company, or they're just those individuals who are never going to be satisfied with the culture of the company, and that's a big concern. And so make sure, if you've got that longevity, say, I was with the company for 3 years, it was a great run, we learned a lot together, and it's not that it was dissatisfying in certain areas, but you just talk through it, and then you have your questions ready. So I have putting back on my UCAP, and so I have some questions in regards to your culture. How have you handled it during failures? You have a few questions ready for them so that they know that you are concerned about it and they can answer those questions, and above all, you know that it's a correct fit, because you don't want to make that mistake. That was the whole discussion that we did on a bunch of these Mentor Minute episodes at the beginning of this week, is what happens when you make a mistake in regards to your career. So again, handle it head on. Explain why their concerns in regards to this are unwarranted in regards to references, longevity, that sort of thing, and then get to your questions. That's how to handle that. Similar to awkward conversations with employees, awkward conversations in interviews are best handled as transparently as possible. So the follow-up to that is, well, what happens if you didn't leave the company? What happens if you got fired? And you can explain what happened, and above all, what you learned from that experience and how you would handle it differently in the future. We all make mistakes. We all have setbacks. This is what I learned. And the more genuine and transparent you are with that, the less of an issue it becomes. So that's my big advice in regards to handling those gaps in your career and dealing with those in an interview setting. Tracy, great to see you here as well. Anybody out there, if you got a question, I will tackle it in real time. I didn't have too many that came in offline today, so I don't have a bunch in the bank. So now's your chance. If you've got a question, any issues that have been going on, you can go ahead and pop those down in the comment section and I will get right to them. The second aspect of this was kind of a follow-on that we to the prior question is when is it the right time to leave? Should I stay or should I go? That was the reference, and it was from Dorothy. I didn't get a chance to get to it yesterday. I don't know if it popped up in my feed or not while I was doing the live session. So sorry about getting to this a little bit late, Dorothy, and sorry about the German soccer team. But that would be in relation to the prior question. Can you maintain your performance and still look for a job? So preferably, and this is a mistake a lot of people make, you can look for a job while you're still employed. If you're not satisfied where you're at, see what's out there. It never hurts to, even if you're satisfied with your job, it never hurts to explore and see what's out there, and something ignites a little bit more passion in you. That's not a problem. That's what you owe yourself from a development standpoint. And the organization, yes, you should have loyalty to the organization, but you also, should be doing a good job. So it shouldn't be like a bad thing that, you spent time at that particular organization. So continue to look. And if you're asking the question, should I stay or should I go? My first reaction is the fact that question even popped into your head means you probably should be leaning on the I should be going part. So put your resume together, start looking at the job boards that are out there, apply for jobs. You can get offered jobs and you can turn them down. Sometimes people don't realize that you can go for a job, figure out it's not a good fit, and turn the job offer down. I've had that happen to me a few times when I've offered people positions before. So you can do that. So keep your feelers out there. But getting back to the initial question, and Dorothy, I know you are aware of the two reasons that I say to leave a job. You've lost the upward mobility, and you aren't learning and growing in your skill sets, your background, your experience. So those are the two reasons. If both of those are fulfilled, you go ahead and move on from that particular position. But what I also have as far as markers that are out there is that when you start seeing, what I want to say is a slowdown in momentum within the organization. Oftentimes this happens after big changes that are occurring in the organization. But when you see that slowdown in momentum, that can be the trigger that maybe you want to move on. Where you have an organization and a department that's cresting and you want to pick the side back up. I've had some experience with that where I happened to leave companies at the right times. We'd finished projects, we were refining things, and so it was going to be static, and that's why I left. And it turns out that the whole organization ends up turning over soon thereafter. Similarly, another position, new executive management came in. There were some changes that were made to the culture, kind of following along with the first question that we got today. And so I decided to move on and explore other opportunities after that. And sure enough, the whole organization turns over after the fact. So you can see those changes, and you can see that you kind of read the tea leaves a little bit. And again, the fact you're asking the question is a good indication of where that needs to be. Now, sometimes there's very obvious things that pop up, decisions that are made that are indicative of where your leader stands on things. It may be that you dodge a whole bunch of bullets, but the fact that the boss is firing bullets is a problem, and eventually you're going to get caught in the line of fire, and that can be a reason to move on. But take a look at what's out there, see what jumps out at you and excites you, and those job positions that excite you, that might intrigue you and make you want to move on. That can be a reason for it. So I hope I answered that, Dorothy. If I didn't, go ahead, feel free to follow up. There's lots of career questions, and that goes along with a lot of what I talk about here, and we can kind of talk through some things as well. And Tracy, so much of, and I've spent a number of years in retail. That was one of my first management positions out of college was actually at the Sports Authority, which is now sadly shut down. And it's just amazing how that's the perfect example where there's a high turnover. And so what happens is people that are good in individual jobs working as sales associates get promoted into leadership, but there's no training on how to be a leader, and those are completely different positions. And so what happens is that just there's no foundation of leadership within an organization as it builds up. And so getting that training, and for everybody out there, if you're a small business owner or you're a manager, invest in the next rung down. Invest in those supervisors that are in the organization. Those are kind of the sergeants in the military. There's talk about there's that old sayings in regards to that. But get your supervisors squared away, and that's a foundation of leadership for everything else. If you focus on one area of leadership within an organization, I'm a firm believer that the supervisors, those frontline management, that's the real key. But yes, sadly, Tracy, you're not alone in that. Yamna has our next question, and it is, what is the best way to determine my short-term and long-term goals to be able to choose my career? If I see that I can work anything, since I know well how to do it, and I'm willing to practice it to gain experience, not only I see, but I have already 2 careers and did well. Can goals help me determine my final career to continue, or what can be the criteria? So, you want to work on the long-term goals first. Okay, Yamna, that's the first thing. You want your short-term goals to be along the path towards your long-term goals. So what is your long-term goal? Do you want to have a huge impact in your operation? That might mean that you're in a smaller company as opposed to, here in the States, a Fortune 500 company. You may want to have an impact. So it might be that you have to pick the organization that you want based on the impact that it has in the overall scheme of things in the world. So you look at a couple of things in regards to that. Where you want to go within that organization. Now, one of the things that I tell people when I'm doing a lot of career counseling today, when talking about careers, is get into the company that you want to be a part of any way that you can. It is easier to get laterally transferred into the department that you want than it is to come in from the outside in many instances. So even if that's sometimes you have to take a step back to take a step forward. Sometimes you'll take a step back to get into that organization, and that's something you can talk about in the interview. But set those long-term goals and really start asking the questions, why? There's an old saying that you can get to the heart of any question by answering the question why 4 times. So why do you want to work for a big company? Well, it's because I want to have an impact. Well, why do you want to have an impact? Because I want to be fulfilled in what I do. Why do you want to be fulfilled in what I do? Because I want my life to have meaning. Why do you want your life to have meaning? I go off on a tangent there, but answering those questions, getting clear on those big things, and then it's the small things. So what is my goal? My goal is to get into that organization, or my goal is to get an associate's degree in accounting if I wanted to get into finance and accounting, or get my real estate license if I wanted to set out on my own in real estate. So what are your short-term goals that align with that longer-term goal? So get crystal clear on that. Really paint the picture and ask the questions why. And what happens is you end up being able to get a fuller picture of the reasoning behind it and what that goal looks like. And that helps paint the picture of the path to it. Then you set your next short-term goal. What's my goal? Preferably, I'll go ahead and back down. What's my goal today that is going to help me get to my goal? What is my goal for the week? What is my goal for the month? What is my goal for the quarter? What is my goal for the half year? What is my goal for the year? In regards to that, and set those up ahead of time, and that creates your steps that move you towards that long-term goal. So that's how I work long-term and short-term goals in so many cases, Yamna. Great question. Brianna, so good to see you here. And Melody has our next question, and I am caught up. So any questions you have, I'll answer them almost in real time. How to prevent and deal with discrimination in the workplace? Well, that's I want to say a tough question. I don't think it's necessarily that tough. It's one I just don't get too terribly often. The key is to building up respect amongst individuals. So you can set the policies, and most governments have policies, anti-discrimination policies. So the policies are in place. What you need to back that up is you need to tie everybody behind a universal goal. Why are we here? What is the purpose of the organization? What are we all working towards? All right. I draw the example when we're talking mutual goals to sports teams. They all have, for the different positions, all have different purposes. Defense is stopping people from scoring points, and offense is scoring points. But all of them work towards the end goal of scoring more points than the opponent. All right, so get clear on that goal. That helps tie everybody together. The other thing that you want to do as far as discrimination is create opportunities for conversation and communication. That is the thing that allows for respect to be built and allows people to deal with issues before it becomes something of a discrimination aspect, and for people to understand other individuals. So much of discrimination is simply not understanding enough about the individual. Stepping up on my soapbox just a little bit, it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jew, whether you're Hindu. All of us want to support our families and provide the best life for our children. That is what unifies everybody here on earth. And so if you get people tied to those goals, but then dive into the communication where people can start understanding that there's similarities between different people, that we have similar backgrounds. So one-on-ones, team meetings, monthly, group meetings, stand-up meetings with each shift. Those are all great. Getting people to work together on team projects. I'm a big fan of handing out tasks, not to individuals, but to two individuals. And then you just start rotating that around. Again, for those that have heard this before, yes, they are just going to take that task, split it, and then come back together. But you are creating a little bit more dialogue with your team. Find opportunities to create that communication, and you're going to cut down on that discrimination because there's better understanding of what people have to offer, what their backgrounds are, and what those similarities are. I hope that answered your question, Melody. It's one I don't get too terribly often, but one that I'm obviously firmly in favor of not having discrimination in the workplace in any way, shape, or form. So anybody else that's on there, if you've got some questions, I'll give you about 15 seconds here to drop down into the comments section and ask that question, and I'll just tackle it right away as we get on here. Any struggles that you've had this week, anything you're not looking forward to, some conversations you may need to have, those are always tough ones to have, but I'd love to get any of those questions that you have on there for you. I will hit on one thing that hasn't come up lately, and while I let you all type away over there for your questions, and that is delegation. And it's something I want to refresh. I don't think I've hit on it, and I haven't been asked about it in a week or two. And that is, you want to be delegating those tasks that are most frequent and the simplest to teach. And the reason is, most people delegate the wrong things. You delegate the one-off things that you don't feel like you have time for, and that somebody else can take care of. And that's half the equation. But what you really want is you want to invest that time. So if it's a weekly report that you can have somebody do in its entirety, or if you can have somebody help you put that report together and pull some information. Those are those things where, yes, you spend an hour teaching them something that you can do in 15 minutes. But if it's a weekly report, it's something that you, after 4 weeks, you've got your return on that investment because you never have to do that again. So look for those frequent tasks that are easy to train. And what happens is you create a little flywheel, a positive feedback loop, where you get more time after a month. And then you invest that time in something else that saves you a half an hour a week. And then after a month of getting that time back, then you invest in something that saves you an hour a week. And pretty soon you've saved yourself a ton of time as it's moved on down the road. And you've developed your team as well. So it's win-win for everybody. But that's one of the main keys with delegation, is training tasks that are frequent and recurring. That way you get the continual benefits and the continual positive feedback and motivation for yourself. Next one from Aaron, and that is, if you are told that you are up for a promotion, but a month has gone by, how long should I wait before bringing it back up? It depends on what up for a promotion means, Aaron, although after a month it probably is about the same. So if there's an open position and they say that you are up for that promotion and they haven't gotten back to you in a month, ask about it. Truthfully, after 2 weeks is fine to ask for that in regards to a specific position. If you're up for a promotion in a more general sense, like there's no time pressure for it, it's just you've put in 2 years, so now it's time for a promotion, I think it's still fine a month later to follow up. Now, if there's certain things that you need to work on, that's a good time to open that discussion of, is there anything else I can do to prepare for this position or make myself a better candidate for that position? But a month is certainly enough time, I think, to follow up with that discussion. And you can ask, if it's something that's just out there, should I check back with you in a couple of months and see how it is, or next month and see how it is? So ask for those time frames so that you're not being seen as being pestering them. And I know that's probably one of your main concerns, but certainly after a month, you're definitely okay to go and ask about it. For those people that are asking for or want a promotion, the first thing I recommend is actually going to your boss and letting your boss know that you are interested in that promotion. Hey, just so you know, I love working for this organization and I would love to move up in this organization. So if there's an opportunity to move up, I would very much be interested. You would be surprised how many bosses aren't aware of who wants and who doesn't want a promotion within their organization. So if you want something, ask for it. So ask for that promotion. Then you follow up 3 weeks later, a month later, and say, hey, just so you know, I know we had that conversation in regards to me being promoted. Is there anything that I can work on that will help me be ready for that position or that will make me a better candidate for that position? And those are the two questions that you might follow up with, Aaron, when you have that conversation, that follow-up. Are there things that will help me be an ideal candidate or that I can work on to gain the experience to make me a better candidate for those positions? That's how you work that up. Yamna's next question is, do you see that seeking to be a licensed trainer or coach worth to pay the money for, or you see it enough to practice and grow gradually? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each? To go without a license or go with it? Which guarantees success? Which serve in more professional? Generally, people want experience, not certifications, when it comes to training and coaches. You can get it. It's nice window dressing, but truthfully, what people are really after is, what is your experience? And if you can show, whether it's testimonials or what have you, if you can show that experience and how you've impacted other individuals, that's what really matters more than the book training. If you don't have any background in training or coaching, Yamna, then getting that certification might be something that is worthwhile. Truthfully, though, I would go with the cheapest one that gives you some sort of certificate, that gets some sort of recognition that's out there. Is simply because what people are really looking for is they're looking for that background. And stepping into any position that you can find that gives you that experience being a trainer is what you really need to be working on. Even if it's not a training position, perhaps it is just a supervisor or a manager position where you can start training and where you can start demonstrating and working on those particular skills. Those are other areas to get into as well. And that can be, when we talk long-term goals, that can be a short-term goal to get some experience training. And you can get that in a lot of management roles, depending on the organization. So that would be a question you might ask your next organization is how much training does this management position provide? Or how much training does this supervisor role provide to the team? And if they say it doesn't provide any, then that's probably not a good fit. Or if that's something that we do all the time with new hires. Well, how often are you hiring new hires? 2 a year. 1 a month. Okay, well now I'm gaining some experience with that. So look for those opportunities, and that's way to get creative. Aaron, I'm glad that helped. Let me know if I can be any other assistance to you as you go through that, and I hope the conversation goes well and you just get promoted, bam, on July 1st here. So anyways, if there's any other questions, drop down. Otherwise, you can check this out on my podcast. That's a great way to take it with you on the go and just kind of exercise that leadership mentality. So much of it is just having a conversation and continually thinking about these principles, and it gets easier and easier to apply them in your job, which makes your job life much, much easier. So with that being said, any other questions that pop in, I will hit them up on tomorrow's episode. Take care, everybody, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.